Can you understand me when I speak English? What about listening to native speakers in a natural conversation? Sometimes it can be a bit like, right, where's the conversation going? What are they talking about? Let alone you controlling the conversation. But today, I'm going to show you how to master the art of English conversation so you can understand and be understood. Let's do it. Hello, it's Keith from the Keith Speaking Academy, and here to help you become a more confident speaker of English. Now, you may find that when you listen to me or other videos or podcasts that you can understand quite a lot. But maybe when you go into a real conversation with various or several native speakers or proficient speakers, you can't follow the conversation. It's hard to know what they're talking about. And sometimes when you say something, people go, "What are you talking about? We finished talking about that," because you can't keep up. The reason is because you may not be following the cues or the signposts that native speakers use to control the conversation and to take the conversation in different directions. So today, I'm going to give you some key phrases, these signposts that we use to control conversations, so that you can understand and be understood in a native speaker conversation. I'm going to show you how to start a conversation, agree, disagree, make an idea, add ideas, change topic, return to a topic, persuade people, end conversations. All of that in a very, very simple way with very spoken signposts. Okay, let's begin with starting a conversation, right? Now, of course, when you meet up with friends, there's going to be greetings, bit of small talk. Hello, hiya, how's things? What's happening? What's up? Maybe with an American English. But then you want to take a particular topic, introduce a topic, and start getting ideas about it, right? So you may think the most common one is to say, "What do you think about da 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 da?" But actually, that can be problematic because maybe they're not aware of that topic. So it's much better to introduce the topic first and then ask their opinion, right? Typically, we would say, "Have you heard about ba ba ba? What do you think about that? Have you heard about the new social media ban in Australia? Right? What do you think about that?" Or even better, "What's your take? What's your take? What do you think about it?" Right? An alternative is, "Do you know that da 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 da? What's your take? Do you know that social media ban in Australia? Right? What's your take?" And there you're signposting to start a conversation. Next. So now you've kicked off the conversation, people are going to give their ideas, their opinions, and you now can agree, maybe. Now, of course, you can say, "I agree," that's fine. But here are some other things you'll probably hear. When people first kind of agree softly or accept an idea, they may say, "Fair point, fair point." If they agree with an idea, a very common word in English is indeed. Indeed. Just means, yes, I agree. Indeed. After an opinion. Agreeing a bit more strongly, you could hear or say, "That's so true. That's so true." Or even more strongly, "That's what I'm talking about." When somebody has identified an idea you agree totally with, "That's what I'm talking about." Let's move on. Now, of course, you may not agree, you may disagree, and you could say, "I disagree," right? Of course. But often, if you're hesitating because you don't quite agree, you'll hear, "The thing is, da 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 da," and then you give your opinion or give the reason you disagree. But you just say, "The thing is." One of the most common ones actually is, "Yes, but," and this is a similar thing. Of course, you may disagree, and often in Britain at least, we try and disagree politely. Here are 3 things you may hear, or you can say. Interesting. Interesting, meaning yes, but you disagree. That's all well and good, but, right? That's a lovely idea, but here's the problem. That's all well and good, but, or actually, and then give the counter argument, right? So you're kind of saying the truth is this, you're wrong. Actually, da 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 da. Okay, let's move on. Okay, next, suggestions, ideas, and interrupting. Okay, now first of all, making a suggestion. Here, imagine the scenario where you're maybe talking about a possible activity or a plan that you want to do as friends. Probably one of the most common things to say here is, how about this? And then you make your proposal or your suggestion. How about this? Or, I think we should, da, 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 da. I think we should go to the cinema. This you can also use if you're giving your opinion or idea about another group of people. You know, I think they should. I think he should. Simple ways of making suggestions. Now, adding ideas. People are talking, they're giving their suggestions or they're giving their opinion, and you want to add an idea. A really nice one, and one you'll hear a lot, is yes, and what's more, ba, 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 ba. Yes, and what's more, we should go to the cinema on Saturday, for example. Next, interrupting. This depends very much on different circumstances. So first of all, let's take a formal situation, right? Interrupting in a meeting. One of the most common ways is just to say, can I just say, da, 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 da. So you just pause. Well, because you've given the cue and everybody hopefully goes quiet and then listens. Can I just say, pause, people stop talking, and then you say what you want to say. Can I just say, I think we should do this? That's in a meeting. You sometimes hear in interviews with people and with journalists, this happens quite a bit, especially British journalists. They might say, forgive me, but da 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 da. And here they're going to interrupt because the other person's talking a lot, and the journalist will want to interrupt and say, actually, no, I don't fully agree. Forgive me, but of course they're not asking forgiveness. It's just a way to interrupt. If you're around a table with friends and you're discussing, or down the pub, interrupting, you just need to say something to tell them you're interrupting. In some cultures, and the Spanish one and I think maybe Italian are a bit like this, you just talk over people and everybody talks at the same time. In Britain, we tend to say something that can interrupt so people will listen, right? And generally we would just say, do you know what? And then you'd say your thing. So that's just a way of interrupting, right? Do you know what? I think we should da 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 da. Okay, that's it. Let's move on. Right, let's talk about changing topic and kind of returning to a topic. Okay, so changing topic, the one word you just need to say in English is anyway. And everybody understands it's time to change topic. Anyway, if you want to change topic briefly and kind of do a sidestep, you can say, by the way, da da da. So maybe you're talking about social media and then suddenly you say to someone, by the way, remind me to go and do da 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 da, right? And then you come back to the conversation. If you want to change topic and talk about a related topic, then you would say, speaking about da da da, and then say your next thing. Speaking about the social media ban, have you heard there's a new social media app? Yeah, what do you think about it? You see that? Changing slightly onto a related topic and starting a new related conversation. Now then, if you want to return to the original topic or your original idea, you can just say, as I was saying, and then go back to what you were saying, right? As I was saying, I think the social media ban was a really good idea. Okay, nice. Let's move on. Okay, next, let's look at persuading people. Very important, right? First of all, persuading somebody to try and agree with your idea, right, or your opinion, you could say, well, look at it this way. And then you kind of rephrase your idea. But when you hear that, they're trying to persuade you. Well, look at it this way. If you're trying to persuade somebody to take an action, like, I think you should apply for that job, you could say, you might as well apply for that job. Or, you've got nothing to lose. Go on, apply for the job. You've got nothing to lose. Why not give it a go? Okay, simple ways of trying to persuade people to take action. Now, I'm going to add something here which is quite useful in conversations, is when you're surprised by something. Now, of course, the most common thing is just to say, really? Really? Like that, right? But often in English, we have this thing where we echo the question. So if somebody says, I'm getting married, then you would say, you're getting married? You repeat the question to them, right? Yes, I'm getting married. You're getting married. Or you could just say, you're getting what? If you're really surprised, you put what or how or why at the end. Somebody says, I'm going to have a baby. You're going to have a baby? Or, if you're really surprised, you're going to have a what? And the stress is on that what. And of course, you could add then things like, no way. Again, adding or emphasizing your surprise. You're going to have a baby? No way. Right, let's bring this video to a close. Okay, let's talk about ending the conversation, right? Now, this depends on the context. If you're in a meeting, you may hear or use, let's wind this up. Let's wind this up. Let's finish. Or just let's wind up. Okay. One of the most common ones you'll hear, especially with a group of friends, is right. Especially for English people. Whenever an English person is about to stand up and do a different activity, they have to say, right. And then they do the new activity. So ending the conversation, you just say, right. If somebody's ending a conversation, if you hear the following, they go, at the end of the day, that means what they're going to say is the most important thing. And for them, the conversation is finished. At the end of the day, that ban in Australia, it's never going to work. And what I'm really saying is that's the end of the conversation for me. Okay. At the end of the day, da, 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 da. So there you have it, a whole bunch of signposts and cues, most importantly that you can pick up and understand so you know where the conversation is going. As your level improves, you can start using these to also control the conversation as you're speaking and participating in conversations. I hope this helps you on your journey to master the art of English conversation and help build your confidence as an English speaker. Your next step, download the PDF. You can get these phrases and more so you can review and maybe do a bit of practice. It's a great reference to have as well. If you'd like to find out more about my work, go and check out my online courses at keithspeakingacademy.com, and I would love to see you there on the inside. In the meantime, thanks very much for watching. It's been a pleasure being with you and sharing these ideas. I look forward to seeing you soon in the next video or in one of my courses. All the best now. Take care. Bye-bye.